Welcome to another episode of Living Your Spark Second Half. I have a special episode today. I have my two daughters joining me. I invited them on because I want to talk about navigating change. And it's a time of year where we're entering it's fall, school season, not only a seasonal change with weather in many parts of the world, other than if you live on the equator. But in Virginia, where I live, we have a new season. It's my favorite, in fact, fall. And it also means going back to school. It means transitions for a lot of people, kids being dropped off at college, parents having to say another goodbye. Sometimes it's the first goodbye, and it's sometimes a big, big change of life. I'm talking to you empty nesters out there. But change is something that happens to all of us frequently. And sometimes it's change we want. Sometimes it's change that is put upon us that is unexpected and maybe unwanted. And it's how do we navigate that? Taking your kid off to college for the first time, for most of us who like our children, and thought we'd never see the day, it is unwanted. And so what other changes? Getting fired from your job, changing schools, having your kid go from one school to another, moving to a new neighborhood, moving to a new city, all kinds of change, adjusting to a divorce, a partner dying, as a recent guest of mine had to navigate. So changes, a lot of changes. And it's how we navigate those changes that is so important. And I thought my daughters could lend a little insight into that topic because they have both had some very serious changes in their lives in the last 6 months. And actually in the last 3 months were two situations. So one daughter got fired from a job, and that was an unwanted change that she had to navigate. The other daughter moved from her place where she was born and raised, and she's just turned 39 right before she moved. And then also taking her oldest off to kindergarten, which is huge. I mean, you're maybe taking your kid off to college, and that's huge. But when your oldest goes from being really a baby, because in your eyes, going to little preschool, they're still so small. They're still so, it's like when they go off to a kindergarten situation, it's like, that's it. It's just the beginning of the end, in a way, the end of like eventual parenthood. You're needed less, right? You're just, you're entrusting the school system to take care of them going forward. It's such a different arrangement than being in daycare. Almost didn't put him in a kindergarten. She almost held him back a year. And she talks about what her mindset was and why she did that, or why she was thinking that, and what made her change her mind. And, it's all these things. And I appreciate my kids because they are so much more thoughtful and aware of their thoughts and what is causing them to think certain ways and how they feel and how they're projecting that on their kids. They just do such a good job, much better job than I did when I was their age. And so I am so happy that they were willing, and they're both work and have busy jobs and kids. So I wanted to see if they could join me for a short period of time. Of course, evenings aren't very good for them. So we picked like a lunchtime hour. So they were able to come on, and we did. I don't often have two guests. I never have my kids on. I think actually one of them was on once, but it's been a while. But my other one, she's never been on. I thought she was going to be really resistant to it. And then at the end, she's like, can we do this again? So it might be a regular feature that we come back on. We'll think of topics to share with you guys. If you enjoy this episode, let me know. But it's a little insight into navigating change and learning and meeting and hearing from my kids, who I'm so proud of and I love so much. So without further ado, here is Nikki and Kori. Today's episode is a very special one. I have my two daughters joining me today, and I think one of them has been on a while ago, my oldest, Nikki, and my youngest, Kori. So I'll let them introduce themselves, but I'm super excited because, first of all, some of you have been listening to me. You might hear me talk about my daughters, but you haven't had a chance to hear from them. And I've made them swear to share how perfect I am. No, I told them they can say whatever they want so they can share like maybe the damage I did to them when they were younger, because clearly I wasn't as aware of things as I am today. So I've had a lot of brain training in the last few years. And so unfortunately, these are my guinea pigs of when I didn't have any of that, but they've turned out pretty well. I am very happy to say. And I think one of the things I always say, and I always like to say to other moms, is the biggest challenge, and they're both mothers now, is launching your kids into the world. And it's a hard thing to transition into, and just like knowing or thinking or wondering if they're going to be okay, if they're going to be successful, if you'll always have to pay their cell phone bill for the rest of their lives, or if one day they can actually pay it themselves. So welcome to the podcast, girls.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
I got away with you paying my cell phone bill for a really long time. I was well into my 20s.
One day I thought I cut you off right after college.
Not my cell phone. You called me up one day and you were like, meet me at Verizon. And I was like, no.
Well, did Kori suffer? Because I mean, sometimes the younger one, well, they say the younger one sometimes gets away with more because you're more stiff and stern with the oldest one, but then sometimes the youngest one, like if you stop doing something for the older, you're like, okay, the younger one.
It was probably that, but I don't remember. I mean, cell phones were different then. We weren't even on iPhones probably at that point. So,
oh, that's true. We had flip phones. Was that your first phone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Remember the pagers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll tell we should go around, share how old you are, how many kids you have, how many grandkids I have, my beautiful grandchildren. So of course, before I hit record, I had to check on the children. So yes. And I know you guys both work and I appreciate you taking the time to be here. So let's start with the eldest, Nikki, and then we'll go to Kori.
Hi, I'm Nikki and I'm 29. I'm just kidding. I'm 41.
Yes, and I'm like 42 or whatever.
I'm 41. I am a wife and mother of 4, and I work remotely in social media for a tech company, a startup.
Yes.
Where do you live?
Oh, I live in Charleston, South Carolina.
Beautiful area. And unfortunately, she moved away from me. Maybe that's a sign that, I don't know, but it's a beautiful place. And I know you wanted to get out of the rat race in the DC area. They were raised in.
You just went to another rat race, though.
It's turning into most people here, most people have remote jobs. It's very flexible, like balanced, I think good work-life balance here, but it is turning into a very popular place to move to. So it's growing very quickly. So it is kind of like Loudoun County, where we grew up, how quickly that grew. It's kind of, unfortunately, there's not as much places to build though, because we're running out of land.
Yes. Yes. And something you never had to deal with is hurricanes. You just had a hurricane situation, although it wasn't that bad. Yeah. But she left me. And I remember crying when the van moved. You know, you were in Charlottesville for a little while and you left with the kids, and it was like one of the saddest days, but I'm happy they're happy. The kids are so happy where they live, and they're just wonderful little kidlets, and their ages 4 to 12. So yes, she is the one who didn't know how to use birth control.
I can't be on birth control because of my pulmonary embolism.
That's right.
The whole world about it.
Oh yes. Well, we want to get like real. We want to talk about things like that, right? So She did have a pulmonary embolism and almost died when she was the day before her 21st birthday. So that's a whole nother story. I don't know if we'll have time for that. All right. So Kori.
Separate podcasts.
Yes. And Kori was there to save her life. So thank you very much, Kori, for calling me at work and saying something's wrong with Nikki. All right.
Hello. I'm Kori, the tattoo-free child.
Yes.
Is that your
Thank you.
I am 39. Living
and a half
month. Yes. Just 39 and a half. I have 2 children. They are 2 and 5. And I live in Roanoke, Virginia. Newly live here. So I moved here 6 months ago. Exactly, almost. And I work for LexisNexis IP. It's our intellectual property business unit, and I do content marketing for our global marketing team.
Thank you. It's very interesting how you guys both ended up in the world that you are in, which is kind of similar, which I think you do because I thought I was going to be an English teacher because my mom was an English teacher. It's kind of but you've kind of made your own way and done your own thing and been very successful because clearly I have no influence in your success. You're on your own.
We've always been in something that's content related or marketing related.
Yeah. I remember you saying once, Nikki, to me, I never want to have a desk job. And I was like, good luck. That's what I knew my whole life. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know we would have the internet. I didn't know that we would be able to carry laptops around and be on our phones while we're in the grocery line chatting at a meeting. So that was far beyond sometimes I think about my grandparents and what they would think today. I saw something recently that somebody posted the Jetsons and 4 different things that were on the Jetsons that were so far fetched. And it's the things we do today, like Zoom, like this. So one of the things and the reason I wanted to have you guys on here was because talking about navigating change, I think it's so important that when we are facing change, that we have the right attitude. And sometimes it's very hard because change can be very scary, very unknown. And I know this is a time right now where people are experiencing a lot of change. September is a lot of change. Kids are going back to school. Some kids, a lot of the people that are my age that I'm seeing on social media, they're sending their kids off to college for the first time. Maybe it's their last year. So, when you're in the college situation, I think taking your kids to college is one of the hardest things, one of the hardest transitions. And then, like I said, when I started launching kids into the real world after they leave college, but it's also the nest is emptying for good. Because when you're in college, you're still kind of attached. You're still coming home. And in some cases, kids, because of the pandemic, they're after college and they're still coming home. And some people have to recycle to go back home. But you guys both, when you graduated from college, you moved out. So I didn't have any of that, lingering opportunity. And so I know that there's all kinds of change, and you guys don't have college age kids, clearly, but you've both been, what?
How hard, I don't remember. How emotional were you when we went to college? Were you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah. I think it hit me after you moved, right? Because you were still coming back. And I think, I
approached home.
Huh?
I lived at home for a little bit before I moved to New York. Right?
Yeah. Well, you moved into Arlington together. So did you go to New York and then come back, or I can't remember?
I went to New York and then I went to Charlotte and then maybe I moved back and then I was in Virginia.
But I think just for a summer.
Maybe it wasn't very long.
Yeah.
That was when you and Dad were going through your.
Yeah. Yeah. I do remember you had your car in the garage because it got vandalized and the window got broken.
The cat took
and the cat pooped in it and peed in it, and then we couldn't get that smell out for years. I still have that car. Yeah, but Yeah. So I think with you, Nikki, being the oldest, because Kori was still around, you were still coming back. But
Probably harder
uh,
on me than you.
yeah, I remember you. Yeah, because your sister left, your
Yeah.
bestie left. And that's one thing about my kids is they were best friends and they had good friends too, but they were very close. And I'm very happy about that. But I was hard, but it was a good time for our relationship too, Kori. I thought so when the oldest goes off, there's that opportunity to connect with a child because you never had me alone your whole life until Nikki left school, and they're 2 years apart in school. So, yeah. So I think for me, when you first went off to college, Nikki, what I focused on, and this goes to attitude, is I focused on what I was focused on looking forward to something. What was new and exciting about this transition versus then, oh, she's not going to be here every day, or I'm not going to get to see her, or what am I losing? It was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna. And I had a great college experience, and my lifelong friends I met, and so I was so excited for you and to hear you calling me and saying, oh, I met this person, and oh, my roommate's this, and and we had a chance to meet your roommate as we, before. I don't know if you communicated beforehand, but we met her at,
We emailed.
yeah, you emailed and stuff. So there was this excitement about the new adventure. And so it was like I was on the adventure with you and I knew you were coming home. Now she went to Florida from Virginia to school. So it wasn't like she could conveniently come home to do laundry on the weekends. So it was like you were gone. But we were fortunate enough to have the ability to go down and visit you a couple times. And then, of course, you came up for Thanksgiving and such. So I think my attitude was always like excitement for you all and what you were going to experience and the kind of living vicariously through you and being excited for that. And I think I also had a job that I enjoyed and it kept me busy and kept me focused on that. So it wasn't like I was a stay-at-home mom and all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, I have no kids to parent anymore. So yeah, but I did miss what I really missed is the activities. Your friends would come over, we would go. You guys were both very involved in sports. So a lot of our weekends were filled up with that. And so that was a big gap in my life on the weekends after you guys left. So that was really hard. So yeah, but I want to talk about other changes too, because you guys have navigated recent changes, I think, is it excellently? Is that a word? Excellently?
That's the copyright.
Awesomely, fantastically. But yeah, because, and you guys have the ability, you're just much more awake and aware than I was of your feelings and of your emotions and tapping into that. And your kids will probably be much better at life because you guys are really good at talking to them and to understanding them and not reacting and getting triggered very easily. And
just respectful parenting.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The
Yeah.
millennials movement.
Yeah. I mean, just always be the parent, right? I think some make the mistake, but this was in my generation too, of wanting to be their friend more than their parent. And maybe I was guilty of that on a couple of occasions. But yeah, you have to be the one in charge. And it's sometimes good to let them build a little character, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's hard, though.
Yeah. So I want to start because Kori, you've had two big transitions in your life in the past 6 months. You moved from where you grew up.
Yeah.
Years, 38 years, 39 years. And I was there 50. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And so you moved 4 hours away and I know you were really worried about your kids and the transition that would cause. And then you just sent your oldest off to big boy school, I call it. But yeah, he went off to kindergarten. And that was a big debate in your head about, is he ready? Should I hold him back? Because he's got a late birthday. And you ended up And you went through that. I know it's really hard for you. So why don't you share? I don't know which one you want to start with, but I would love to share how you kind of approach those two things and how did it turn out in particular, like when you were contemplating the move,
Mm-hmm.
like, what were your thoughts
Yeah.
and how did it turn out versus what you anticipated?
Sure. Okay. Well, moving, that was something that my husband and I, we've been living in DC area for, well, he'd been there since he graduated. So it was 2006. And obviously I'd been there really indefinitely. I'd been there always. And
1984.
yes, with some brief moves to Florida, and I was in Radford for a little bit, but I would always visit home. So I have not been back to the DC area since I moved. So this is the longest I've been away by a lot. So
can I interject? The difference the difference between you two is Kori was always trying to get back home. Like she went to Florida, stayed a semester, then kind of went closer, school in Virginia, was there like a year and a half, then came back to DC, went to American University. And Nikki was always like, I got to get out of Virginia. I want to go as far. Well, you stayed on the East Coast, thank God. But I think your thing was warmer. I want to go warmer.
Yeah.
So anyways, yes. Okay.
So we had been, once we had kids and once much of our family had moved away, I think the only person once Nikki left, you'd moved to Charlottesville, which wasn't too far. Dad was in South Carolina, but we really didn't have a whole lot of anything keeping us there. And, once COVID happened, we both I was already working remote, and then that was an option for Matt. So we knew we wanted to move somewhere else. And we had narrowed it down to two places. One was Charlottesville, which we loved to visit. And then the other was Roanoke, where Matt is from. And so we kind of just kept an eye on real estate and didn't have any solid plans on timing. We had been renting, and we knew whenever, hopefully by the time our lease was up the next year, that we would have found something. And a house landed in our lap. It was word of mouth. Somebody Matt grew up playing soccer with had friends down the street that were splitting up, and it just worked out. We went and looked at it. It was a beautiful day in October last year, and we both fell in love with it, and we thought it was perfect. It's a 100-year-old house, so we knew we would probably have some work cut out for us, but it's also mainly like pretty up to date. So
yeah, and I want to say too, like the pluses is, Matt's parents live in the same neighborhood, which is great. And it is the most quaint, I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like I'm going back in time when I go to your neighborhood.
We actually recently, I need to send you this picture we found of an aerial photo of our neighborhood from back in time when it was like still a lot of farmland. It's really cool. But yeah, so there were a lot of reasons we decided this is the right move for us, which is being near Matt's parents. They also, the farm, his family has a piece of property just like 40 minutes outside of Roanoke that, is quite big piece of property that we knew we could help with. The boys would get to grow up spending a lot of time out there. And so that's been amazing. He would get to go to the elementary schools down the street, and Harrison and Colvin would get to go to the same elementary school as their grandfather and there's dad. And so there's just a lot of great things that felt serendipitous about the whole thing. And yes, our street is amazing. It's kids everywhere, next door, across the street, down the street. And all the parents are great. We all have fun. I think I had been here for like 2 months, and I already got to go on like a girls trip with some of the moms. And so it wasn't necessarily a hard transition because we both knew it was the right one. It was time to make this change. The boys were young enough, like Harrison was not yet kindergarten age. So we knew like, let's do this before. And then it worked out because the people we were buying it from, the mom, she was still going to live in the house. And so she was able to rent it back from us. And the timing aligned perfectly that our lease was up at our house and we moved that month. So we didn't even have any overlap on payments. Like it was really like meant to be, I think. So,
okay. So this is my take. This is you describing it now with what you now know. But I remember, and Nikki, I don't know if you remember, but I remember her calling going, oh my God, I don't know if we're doing the right thing. And maybe this was when things still weren't settled completely, but you were so worried about the kids being uprooted because you had a great house. You had a little cute neighborhood and you were there for four or 5 years. I can't remember. So there was a lot of angst around making a big change on what it would do, how the kids.
Remember that from
you don't remember that?
It was mainly around Harrison and his school.
Yeah, I think
school.
For Harrison, definitely that was like one turmoil over that decision. No, with this one, I felt like the timing was perfect. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the house we were in, we weren't going to be able to stay in long term. I mean, I think maybe there were a couple of times where I was like, would be great if we could just buy this house. But like, I was worried about the transition, just not because I wasn't sure if we should do it. I knew we should do it. I was definitely like still just worried about, Harrison's a high feeling child, highly sensitive. And I knew we were going to have to deal with a transition period. And I was not looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe what you're remembering is me just being like, how are we going to navigate this? And I knew, so we initially were going to be able to get them right into daycare at the church, which is at the end of our street. But then we found out that they actually didn't have room and they weren't going to be able to start at the daycare until the summer. And so that became one of the things that was kind of a speed bump in the process. We had to find different childcare for them before the summer. And that ended up working out. We found somebody, but I felt like, there was going to be a lot of change in a short period of time. And so.
And very soon after you moved, he made a comment to you, right? Do you remember the comment he made? You shared with me?
Was something about him being really happy about I love Roanoke or something?
Yeah. Yeah. I love my new house or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. One night he was going to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
These things down.
Yeah. And it's just like filled with kids. He didn't have, a lot of friends he had his school friends and a great little school but he didn't have a lot of like neighborhood friends and stuff. So
he turned a corner that night. I remember because he'd been having some struggles.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like kids, their struggles typically show up in not the most straightforward ways. You kind of figure out, they say go upstream. With him, he's with the kids, and he adapted really easily for the most part. But there were just like other things that I could tell he was. Yeah, it was the move kind of manifesting in other ways.
Yeah. So let's go over to Nikki now. We'll come back to you because I would like to talk about the struggle that you had with the decision to put him in school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, it's just so interesting. And I think as I remember you going, I remember us having a conversation when you were about the move, and there was some time where they didn't know they'd get the house and they thought they didn't get it. And I remember you saying, and it was really a great mindset, as you were like, well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And she never put it on the market. She threatened to put it on the market, but she never actually put it on the market. And I think she was trying to get you guys to come up in your price, and you were like firm on your price, and you were like, nope. And you walked away from it. And then she came back. So you had a really good, attitude with that. But I knew that you were not so focused on because we don't know what we don't know. And so you didn't, you figured it would be a pretty good neighborhood because you were getting feedback and Matt's friend lived in the neighborhood. But still, you tend to think of all the bad case scenarios where my kid's going to be fucked up because, I moved him when he was 4. So you think about that. You don't think, oh my gosh, it was brilliant, because we don't go there. But I want to come back and talk about the kindergarten thing, because that's big. That is a big deal for your oldest to go off and do a big change like that. So Nikki was recently had a job change, which was a little bit of a surprise, but I think it's always hard when you don't make the decision, but yet because the decision's made, I fully believe it's the universe doing.
Well, I had made the decision in my head. I just hadn't
executed on it.
The decision, and then
I know. Yeah. And then you were all like shocked, and I'm like, well, I think it was on its way. So yeah.
Well, I don't think it was on its way. I think it was. I set boundaries, and I was standing up for myself in certain ways, and I don't think it was welcomed. So yeah, I learned a lot of lessons through that experience and what I don't want in a company, so.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're a pleaser. She's always been a pleaser.
Recovering.
Yes. Yes. But you've been a
I'm
pleaser.
not yet recovering, so
You're in recovery. It's always a recovery process. We'll never fully be healed of being a people pleaser. But it's the first time I ever stood up for myself, I think, in a job where I expressed like being unhappy and just standing up for myself, making the decision to call a meeting, call 2 meetings. Like I'd never done that before. And so I'm like, if that's what got me fired, then so be it, because I knew that I was taking a stand for myself and I was standing up for myself. And so it doesn't go from like perfect 30, 60, 90-day reviews to all of a sudden like, oh, we no longer need you because you're not happy and whatever. So I don't want to go into the nitty gritty of it, but
and you thought it was a dream job. And that's another thing where, our perception is always wrapped up with kind of our previous experiences, and it's not always reality, right? It's not, and it could be a dream job for somebody else, but in your case, I think you just weren't aligned. And so it worked out for you. But when you're going through it, you're like, holy crap, now what?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been there before, I've got laid off when I was at AOL, and that was like a total surprise because I just come back from maternity leave. That was devastating. And that ended up leading me into becoming an entrepreneur and like spending 10 years, like being self-employed. And I learned a lot through that experience. And it's always easy to look back. It's hard when you're going through it and you're like, oh my gosh, this time around, there was no severance. There was like, just like, peace out. I'm like, I got 4 kids. Like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Thankfully, like I'm smart with my finances now. I wasn't when I was younger, but I just immediately went into finding a new job, and that's just what I did. Like every day I just looked for and applied to tons of jobs. And I think that can be discouraging for people too, who are looking for a new job, because it's like you apply and like, you don't hear from people, or like they don't even send you a note or anything. So I mean, I feel really grateful and lucky that I did find this job. And I do think because of the content that it's about, I think maybe some people probably didn't even want to interview or didn't want to, give it a chance because it's HVAC, like it's not exciting. When you're on social media, it's, you want to do fun, exciting stuff, but it's really I've been up there about a month now, I think, a few weeks. And I have so much autonomy. Like I'm a manager, I manage somebody, and it's just been
and you
great.
have no meeting Wednesday in the afternoon,
now is
which is unheard. Yeah. I mean, it's like, who does that? That's so fantastic, because people get so like they don't get stuff done because they have meetings all day, and then they end up using their own time to get their work done, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful. My boss is he's amazing, and he wrote out this like whole like manifesto of like who we are, what we do, and it's just very like, I don't expect you to work regular hours. You get your work done when you can. Like, I'm not going to be bugging you to be on the computer, and just really a dream job. Like, I was sold a false bill of goods before. And now,
I mean, that's the other thing too, is that, I mean, you were let down because the things that were agreed upon as part of the hiring were things that weren't fully, the commitment didn't stick on those things. Right. And so an example is like no meetings after a certain time because you've got kids and you got to do the nighttime routine because they like late meetings. And so, it's just a lot of that. Just, again, it comes down to alignment and a misalignment. And it sounds like even though your perception of this job you have now was like, oh, it's not the most exciting thing. And then you get in there and they have the same values. I mean, just like you're just really aligned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's also a good opportunity for me to like work in a larger environment with more people that are protected through a real legit HR company.
Yeah.
And also the experience to like be able to move into different roles. Like I just got asked to be the product owner of our YouTube channel. So I'm like creating it's called a one pager. And so it's like, I'm getting to do some product stuff too, which is kind of related to the social media, but it's also an opportunity for me to maybe I go more into product and just going back to my roots at AOL where I was going to go into product and then I got laid off. So it's been a really like easy transition for me. I still have times where I think it's hard when you go through a tough transition or a tough experience to not look back and say, oh, I should have done this, or I should have said this, or like, how did that happen? Like what, and replay the whole thing in your head, like over and over. And it's so funny because I had like I go to therapy, I go once a month. And I remember like I had canceled my appointment because I was like, I feel I'm fine. Like I don't really need to talk to her about anything. And then that happened. And I called back and I was like, can I reschedule my appointment? Is it still available? And they're like, yes. And I got in there and like, it's nice to have that support of somebody who's like removed from the situation, like just a third party who can just listen to you and talk to you about it. And she like, she told me, and I knew, this, like, as the time goes on, it'll get less and less, like you'll think about it less and less, it'll get less and less hard. And it's so true. But it still pops up sometimes. Like back then I was like, I couldn't sleep. That's all I could think about. And so, but that's also when you're in a situation where you're like, I lost my main source of income. Like, what the fuck am I going to do? I got to find a job. And then, but I just feel like I had to kind of lean in and trust that like it was going to work out for me. And if I couldn't find a job, in what I'm supposed to be doing or like what I'm trained to do, like maybe I go like, I don't know, get a job at Costco or something. Like they probably give me a good discount for all the food I buy at Costco. Like, I'm not.
I would be at least like waitress. You can get like good tips.
Well, then you have to work at night. I don't know. You could.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm supposed to look at the people that work at Costco and they seem really happy. I know they take care of their people.
Yeah. That's the other thing is you didn't have, I mean, there's so many things. You got a big raise, you got family health insurance, you only had individual. So like there's so many pluses that came along with this big hiccup, which wasn't something that you would have done as soon. I think I agree you would have done it, but the universe intervened. And I think that's great. One of the things, and this is true, so true of both of you guys, you're so action oriented. If you got to do something, you get it done. And so
that's so nice. I didn't, because I would not say that of myself. But I know I'm hard on myself.
Yeah.
And I do get stuff done, but at the same time, I want to do so much more and I don't.
I definitely am. But I will say that I do procrastinate. So
yeah, that's probably what it is for me.
But when the shit hits the fan, like it's getting done. And so, And so I would like to
work under pressure.
I would like to know, Nikki, what you learned from that experience about yourself or what was revalidated about yourself.
I think sometimes, like Kori said, you're always the most hard on yourself. And so I think sometimes, like, especially if you're going through an experience like where you got let go, you got laid off, whatever happened, like it's easy to beat yourself up and feel like it's like there's something wrong with you, or like, you feel like maybe you're like a charlatan. Like, do I not deserve to like this job? Was it not
charlatan? Is that the right word for that?
You feel like an imposter syndrome.
Isn't that like a sex bot or something?
No, a charlatan.
No, let me Google it and see what that means.
Charlatan is like a fake, like a person who
pretends to be something they're not, right?
Yes. So you feel like an imposter. Like you're like you have imposter syndrome. You feel
right. I thought it was like
gosh, I'm a little bit smart sometimes.
Can we edit that out?
Copywriter.
What?
Is it Miss Copywriter?
I know.
Right?
Knows our vocabulary. We'll just say it's a brain fart. I know you're getting to be that age where that happens. So anyways, yeah.
I feel like there could be a lot of imposter syndrome. So like going through the job hunting process can be defeating in and of itself. And then you also, so that's piled on top of that.
Yeah. It's like a rejection, big, and then mini little.
Yeah. Like all of those. And then you can be like looking for months and months. So, but I do think like in my experience, at least going through the interview process, and I feel like it was the only company I heard back from a couple people, but it was the only one that I went through the interview process with. And like after the first interview, I heard that they thought I was amazing. They wanted to hire me. And like, I had to go through 3 additional interviews, but it just like revalidated me and that I am good at what I do. And I do deserve this position. And so I think it's just kind of like the imposter syndrome comes up a lot. I think also if you're a people pleaser, like constantly feeling like that you're not living up to what you think you should be, or that you're never going to be good enough. And so it's just like working through that. Brene Brown helps a lot.
Yeah, and I would like you to just take credit for that because as a mom, it breaks my heart when something happens to my kids, like you are moms, and so knowing you lost your job, it was like, oh my God, it occupies all my thoughts. I still remember when you got laid off from AOL. I remember the day because it was my birthday. And you called me. Yeah, you called me and on my birthday and said I got fired. And so, yeah, us moms remember those things. So, but I didn't have any doubt that you wouldn't land on your own 2 feet. And I knew it was the best thing for you. So
I wasn't happy there either. I mean, every time I wasn't happy. It was like, I was ready. It's just like the universe was like, all right.
Yeah. And that's what happens, right? Did you learn that about the universe? The universe intervenes.
Such bad timing.
Yeah, it's never good timing, but you could have created the reality you wanted by pushing things along when you knew that it wasn't aligning. So that's another thing. So let's switch gears back to Kori. And Kori, I want to hear about how you navigated this whole kindergarten thing. Because you were like super worried about it. You were like freaking out.
Yeah, I think it's one of those examples of really, I was doing everything I could to try and get other people to tell me what to do.
Yes.
And get like anecdotal evidence from other people's experiences and like really realizing that it's different for everybody. Every kid is different and you just need to make the decision on your own based on what you know about your kid. And I think for me, like why it was also such a delayed decision was because I had been going back and forth and he really liked the preschool that we had finally been able to get him in over the summer. He was really happy there, but I knew he was complaining about rest time and I knew he didn't need rest time. And I just looked at all of the evidence of him in the past of how he's dealt with change. And even though he does typically have a transition period, which we all do, he really adapts and he gains confidence from it. And so I decided like, you need to put the blinders on and focus on your kid and not worry about who X, Y, and Z, what they're doing, and just really make the decision for yourself. And I know because I had registered him late and I got the information late and, there were a lot of other variables that gave me a lot of anxiety around it. I just wasn't feeling prepared. And I felt like I wasn't able to prepare him because of that. But it's funny because now that we're like a couple weeks in, I've realized I actually think the lack of preparation from his end was better because kids, and Harrison is like this, is like they anticipate and they get that anxiety of like, and they don't really have a great concept of time. So I feel like if he had known earlier, like you're going to kindergarten, you're going to start a new school, he would have been like, is it time yet? When is it happening? And we probably would have had like a less peaceful summer because of it. So I think just telling him it was literally like 2 days before, like you're going to kindergarten.
Yeah. And I remember you were like, I think you said, I'm not ready for this. I'm so unprepared.
I mean, felt really unprepared, but I just I knew I couldn't let him know that I felt that way. And so I did, I just put on my big mama pants and I was like, this is what's happening. This is your classroom. This is your teachers. And she was great too. That was a big part of helped my decision a lot, was meeting her. She's amazing. And even Harrison, like one of their little like homework assignments was to like just ask them about like their favorite thing about school, and his was his teacher. So I think he's really happy there. And
does it help she has 3 boys and one of them is named Harrison?
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I remember one thing that I remember that I was so proud of you for saying is because I was in the hold him back court.
Yeah,
I was kind of pushing that because I thought that based on what you were telling me, I thought that people were pushing you to send him and that you were your gut was like, no, I need to hold him back. But that wasn't kind of the accepted, situation. And what you said to me, which changed my mind, was, no, Mom, I think this is my fear. I think this is my fear. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Of letting go of this stage of his life. And that was so, yeah.
Well, it was all fear-based. It
He
was
chose
like
faith over fear.
faith over fear. It was
That was
all
Mom's
fear-based.
last
It was
week's
fear that
theme.
he was going to have a hard time.
Thank you for that plug, Nikki.
Go listen to last week's podcast. Faith over fear.
We're touching on all the themes, all your favorites. No, because I realized I was like, it was fear-based and they were all selfish, really, because I was scared about like the transition again, like having to deal with that. I was wanting him to be, I loved that he and Colvin were together at school, and I didn't like, I only had that for such a short amount of time. And then I was like, oh, I'll get another year with him when he's 18. It's all of these were like very self-serving. And I also, and then knowing like he's fear, like, yes, he might have a hard time at first, but like kids are resilient, and we know that like this builds character, and he is already built confidence from this. I know, like he came home the other day and he's like, Mom, I think I'm learning how to read. It's like, he's really excited to learn to read. So I just kind of was like, I had to have faith over fear. And I realized like you're really only and people told me either way. Like it wasn't like everyone was like hold him back or send him. A lot of people said hold him back, especially because he's a boy. But I'm like, I don't know. I think he's pretty like every parent says their kid's advanced, but he is, I think, like for his age, emotionally mature and like academically, where he should.
Well, the other thing too, you were saying is that when he did fall asleep, and he didn't usually fall asleep at his daycare, that he would like go to bed so late, and then like now he's hitting the hay earlier, and it just seems like mentally.
Literally the second day, I was like, this is the best decision ever.
See, after the fact, push through in faith, and then you'll find out. Yeah. So thank you for sharing your different changes, and there'll be many more. Let me tell you. And you guys, I mean, Kori, you're going to be 40 your next birthday. Nikki, you're 41. Your husband's 45 or almost 45. Yeah. And you guys, you're like qualified now to be on my podcast. So you're entering your second half. I say anybody over 40 because I think when you get to that age, you start thinking about how do I want to live the rest of my life? So on that note, what do you, in terms of when you think that, how do I want to live the rest of my life? What do I want to do next? I mean, you're just starting a new job. Maybe that is, the question is, I just want to like get comfortable with my new job. But when you look forward, you posted this thing on social media and it kind of made me tear up about the middle mom. It's so profound. So what do you, Nikki, want of your next 40 years?
Oh my God, that's such a loaded question because I feel like I'm still so much in survival mode I have these two older kids that like if I'd stopped having kids, like I'd be sleeping in every morning, do everything about it. They're just, independent. And then I have these two younger kids. And so it's like, and one of them's still in preschool. So I don't even she's not at school all day. And so I'm still kind of like just waiting for her to get to school. So like I can have more time to like myself and work and whatever. Cause it's kind of like, the 3.5 hours goes by so fast when she's at school. So I'm still feeling like I can't even look ahead that far. I think it'll also be weird because Molly's got one more year of middle school. So I think when she gets into high school and then she's like starting to like figure out what she wants to do next in her life, then I think and then I'll have all the kids in school. And then I'll think that will give me more time to think about what do I like want with the rest of my life. But I think for now, I'm just kind of like living day by day, like let's get through, Eleanor, literally, we made another sleep chart because she's in our bed every single night coming down in the middle of the night and she's 4 years old. And I'm like, you do not need to be doing this. And so like the last 2 nights, she slept in her room like all night long. And I'm like, she's been conning me this whole time.
Yeah.
I wanted to get up and take her back upstairs. I'm tired because we have a main floor master for anybody who doesn't know my house. Our primary bedroom's on the main floor and then they're upstairs. So I guess I know that's not a great answer because I haven't thought about it. I'm just let's survive. Let's get living in a house with 4 children is hard. It's really hard. And so it's just living day to day and how can we keep the peace as much as possible and keep, everything moving and grooving. Like literally we have soccer on Mondays, tennis on Tuesdays, soccer on Wednesdays, tennis on Thursdays, hip hop on Fridays. It's just like, we're just in that season of life. So
yeah, that's sometimes what causes midlife crises. Yeah. So just make sure to take care of yourself.
I play a lot of tennis myself.
Yes. Yeah. You have gotten into tennis and that is great. You have your friends and I love that. So Kori, what about you? What are you looking forward to as you navigate entering your 40s? You guys both have such young kids. When I was your age, you guys were about to head off to college. So you had kids a little later. And so maybe your midlife crisis will come in your 60s. What?
We had fun in our 20s.
That's right. You did have fun in your 20s.
Dancing on tables at bars. Not for money. We were like actively willing to do that
but that's okay if you choose to do that too.
It is okay.
Well, yeah, we should tell this a funny story. Nikki met her husband at a bar crawl, the St. Patrick's bar crawl, and Kori met her husband on a soccer field. They had graduated from college and Nikki was the captain putting this team together and she was picking out the guys for the team and she was basing it on how cute they were. So Nikki found.
I think you'd also got some inside information that he was a good soccer player too.
Oh, okay. He played in college.
She said that she also liked the photos.
Yes. So did you have any like insight I'm sure you're excited about your new life in Roanoke.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot about like, what do I want to do? Like, what's my purpose? Probably because I have a mom who likes to help people find that. So I think about it a lot. Right now,
I don't think she's in her purpose right now. So we've had conversations about that. It's scary
I like what I do. Am I doing it like, at the place that I want to be doing it for long term? Like, no, I think what I do, for me, I'd love to do it somewhere that's like the startup where there's a little bit more focus or, passion about that's being built. And then that could be built in, like it's an AOL situation. I know that's like a unicorn and rarely happens.
What did you love to do when you were a child?
Make videos.
What did you love to do in the furnace room where we had an old computer?
Play on the computer. I don't know.
Write stories. You are right.
Stories.
You are a writer deep inside. And one day, someday, but hopefully it's not.
Yeah. I know I need to do more writing. That's not.
You even had a book idea and had an outline.
Property. What?
Yes. You even had a book idea and an outline when you were still single.
I feel like it was like a fantasy book and that's just been so tapped into. I don't know if that'd be the route. I think I would need to do like beach reads or something.
She's talking herself out of it. What that ego, her logical mind is getting in the way. But anyways, that always comes up for me about you and just food for thought. One thing
one thing before you say something, I think too, seeing you, like what you've done since you were our age, like it's so hard to like say, oh, I want to do that. Like you've gone through so many different stages of life since you turned 40. It's like, how can I say, oh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yes.
Sure, because I'm like, there's so many evolutions to be had. Like, let's just go with the flow and see where life takes us.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. Well, I would say have dreams that you know what you want to do. Like, what's that trip you want to take? What's that thing that, you want to try?
I want to go to Taylor Swift Eras show.
Yeah. So let's talk about Hanson before we leave, because we have to talk about Hanson. It's not going to be a good podcast episode with you all if we don't touch on Hanson. So if you don't know who Hanson is, I don't know what your problem is. No, Hanson is a boys group that my girls fell in love with.
They're not a boys group.
They're a band.
Way more than a boys group.
Yes, they're a musical group, very talented. I'm sorry I was not giving them enough kudos, but when you started following them, they were very young. Like the youngest boy,
shaped their lives.
Yes, shaped their lives. I spent a heck of a lot of money on Hanson concerts. We went all around not the world, but the country, going to Hanson concerts. But actually, my girls met Pat Benatar's daughter backstage at one of the concerts, and they became friends.
We met Molly, her friend, backstage.
Yes, that's true. And then, Pat Benatar's daughter was the vice president of a Hanson newsletter, right? And Molly, the
I
the
forgot about
girl
that.
we met
Still
was
in
the
touch with her, by the
president.
way.
Yeah. And so my girls ended up going over to Pat Benatar's house and hanging out with Pat Benatar. And you
This is the first
actually,
place
we
I
went
ever
to,
had edamame.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You remember that? And then Pat Benatar came to like an hour from my house. Remember we went to see her
Oh
and
yeah,
we got to sit on the bus with her and
bus.
her husband. What's his name?
Neil.
Neil.
Geraldo.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. And then I got to sit on stage with you guys. Remember that? That was so much fun. I felt like really important. So anyways,
So I'm at Trump Taj Mahal.
Yeah, in Atlantic City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
yeah.
forgot.
Who? We saw who?
Pat Benatar.
We did?
It was Dad's birthday, right?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I totally forgot about that. We got
So many
backstage passes and stuff.
We went to
Oh my
Songwriters Hall
gosh.
of
Yes, we
Fame,
did.
and we saw like Kim Cattrall in the bathroom there, I think. Like, what
Yeah,
else?
you guys went
So
to the
many-
Grammys. I got tickets at a
Grammys.
silent
Yeah, we went to the
auction and
Grammys.
gave you guys.
After walking the red carpet.
I'd let my kids go to the
If it was
Grammys.
the Oscars, you would not have let us go. You
No, I
would-
probably would have wanted you guys to experience it. That's
Oh.
always the mom I was. But anyways, was that your 18th birthday, Kori? Was that a gift or your 16th birthday or something? I don't know.
I think 18 or it might have been 20. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So back to Hanson. So Hanson is still doing music. We went to a concert. Well, Kori and I went to a concert, within the last year? Yeah, within the last year. And it's so funny to see these kids that have been following these boys who are now parents and have zillions of kids of their own to go to these concerts and see the kids that were 12 and 13 now who are parents and bringing their 12 and 13-year-olds. So the next concert we go to, Nikki, you have to bring Molly.
I don't know if she'll want to.
But
You know, like Hanson? Burke's the Hanson, right?
I mean, sometimes they'll be like, "Mom, is this the band you like?" We just listen to Taylor Swift all day long, so that's who they're into, not the boys. Burke.
Yeah,
Burke
but that's so cool because it makes me think about like how it was with Hanson. Because as a mom, you just want your kids, you want to be with them, you want to experience, you want to have them to have fun. And when they have fun, you have fun. And it's just like an experience. I know you're going because the 4-year-old, she can't really go to a concert and it's hard to get tickets anyways, but you're going to the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she knows all the words.
We're dressing up. We're doing bracelets. My bracelets, I ordered them on Amazon and they've been delayed. And every day, Mom, when are the beads coming? And I got a little bead machine, so it makes it easier to make bracelets. And
what did she say when you told her you got tickets?
She said, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. I'm so happy. I'm crying."
Eleanor did. Just the movie.
She's so excited. Yeah, but she watches that Temptation concert on Netflix all the time, and so it's kind of like that, but like on the big screen. And she's not
blood is
movies
within her.
once. What?
Yeah.
So the groupie blood is within her. The groupie.
Yes.
Yeah.
She did ask, "Will Taylor be there?" And I was like, "No, it's just gonna be like the Netflix thing, but at the movie theater. But it's gonna feel like an experience because I know, according to TikTok, we're treating it like an Eras concert. So we are dressing up, we're going all out, we're singing, we're dancing."
Yeah.
And so I want it to be like when we would put on Tulsa, Tokyo in the middle of nowhere in our guest room, pretend we were at Hanson concert.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be like.
Well, yes. But yeah, I was actually thinking about that first tour. What, the 1998, Mom, you were...
Stadium tour.
What?
The one that was at Nissan Pavilion?
Yep,
No.
Nissan Pavilion and like Hershey Park. We went to like quite a few of the shows. I was thinking, Mom, I think you were like 39. You were the same age I am now.
Oh,
so it's crazy to think.
Well, that is crazy. Whoa. Yeah, I think Nikki missed the first concert we went to, which was kind of sad, but you made up for it.
Do we still have that tape that we got of
she was
saying hello?
I don't know.
Hello to Nikki.
Yeah, say hello to. That's right. We went backstage to the meet and greet, and we got him
devastated. Devastated.
But you were at school. You were at a school. Yeah. That's Eleanor. If you're on YouTube, she just showed on her phone a picture of her daughter holding a Taylor picture. But yeah, so Taylor Swift, not Taylor Hanson. there's
Taylor Hanson.
Yeah. But yeah, so you were on a school trip to Honduras. So you had a legit reason for not being there. But yeah, we made up for it. We had fun. You guys were great kids, and I had a ball with you. And that was also part, when you have kids that you love being around, it makes, it's like my best friends left, it's like, and then you went on to find new friends, and you
Not that
just
far away.
kind of have to navigate that and
Is
accept
it?
it and reach back out, make new friends, or reach out to my old college besties who still are in my life right now. And one of
You keep pretty busy, Mom.
yeah, one of my college besties, her daughter is getting married in November, so we're going to that wedding. So there's always
Like
something to
Kim?
look forward to, huh?
Kim's daughter?
hmm Yeah.
Natalie? Oh, wow. I
Yep.
didn't know.
Yep. So I think, and that is another thing, is you wouldn't have gone to the college you hadn't gone to, Nikki, if it weren't for my college roommate. And she lived there, and we went, oh, we should go visit this college, and ended up where you ended up. So
Oh,
yeah.
true.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your recent huge changes. And hopefully, it's going to help people with a change they're navigating. Any last words? Each of you have a sentence or two about as you approach a change, having experienced positive changes that maybe were difficult as you were navigating them, but they turned out so well. What would you say in maybe a sentence, or any quote or any comment that you would give to a listener who stayed to this long listening to us? So, Nikki, you want to start?
Find a good therapist.
Find a good thing. Yeah, she really believes in therapy, so that's good. And gummies, right? You thought I didn't know. I know about your gummies.
What? You
yeah.
talked to your other daughter about gummies.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay.
I don't have any. Not at the moment. Want to send me some?
I actually don't have any right now, but I need some.
So we're not so into gummies that we keep a stash all the time, but we do approve of those as, maybe in place of some other medication. But
what's your
mine would be, well, from recent experience, I think there's a lot of things, but one from recent experience would be, you don't always need sometimes too much feedback isn't necessarily beneficial. So I would say limit your surveying sometimes to those who you trust the most, or who you feel like can give you the best feedback. But just finding more people isn't necessarily going to help you make your decision better. Like you probably need to go more in when it's really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is so true. I'm glad you said that, because I think when we're taking other people's advice, we're not listening to our own gut. As Nikki said, trust your gut. It's a lot of noise. And I think sometimes, though, when it helps us know what we want, because if somebody's saying something and we're like, I know, it kind of like validates but I just think asking somebody else for advice doesn't mean ignoring what's coming up for you. So great point, Kori. That was really true with that school change thing. Yeah. All right. Anything else besides seeing a therapist, Nikki? I do agree with therapists. I went to marriage counseling, helped us a ton.
I have a therapist too.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think seeing a therapist just says, I'm okay to admit I have work to do, and we can't see our blind spots.
It's like going to the gym for your brain. That's how I look at it.
Exactly.
I think like your generation has such a well, not all of them, obviously, because I know there's been a lot of growth in your generation, but I think traditionally it's been, you don't go, that's shameful. Like you don't talk about it, especially like your parents' generation. Like, oh my God, forbid if you went to a therapist, like you're
deal with it.
Yeah. So I think it's like
be strong.
That it's, encouraged.
I think therapy is being strong. That's
good. Yeah. Good. I like
that you want a subjective.
How do you find a therapist? I know that we were very lucky in finding
if you go on psychology, I think it's psychologytoday.com. I think you can it's a whole service provider, and you can I think there's even reviews, and that's how I've always found mine. I found my current one because that's where I take my kid, and I was like, I think I need to see somebody, and they would recommend it based on knowing me and what I was looking for. They kind of paired us up. So,
and I love. Go ahead.
It's nice just to have that It's not your husband. It's not your mom. It's not your sister. It's just like
Yes.
a person who has no, like, had nothing to do with your life. And she can give you, help you recommend books or like help you with like working through
Tools.
things that nobody else can help you with. And especially for somebody like me who could like so easily push things under the rug or just like bury them, it helps have that release where it's like get everything out.
Yeah. And I love how you did that for one of your kids who was exhibiting things that he was just having trouble dealing with his emotions. And she was like, well, if I'm not, getting through to him, maybe somebody else can. And teaching him how to talk to a therapist, that's such an amazing thing that he'll always know that he can get help. And I love that. I think that's so important. And I think a lot of people don't do that with their kids when they need to, when their kid is struggling and starting young, I think is a great idea.
It's been going for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I love you. I love talking to you. So having this hour with you has been a treat for me. And I know you took your time, so I appreciate it.
Should we do like a quarterly series? We all like get together and
what's
talk
going
about
on?
I think a good one would be like navigating adult child relationships.
Oh yeah.
Your listeners, what they think about that. Because I know like some people don't have as close of a relationship with their adult children, and maybe we could like talk about that. That's like a hot topic. Sometimes I see articles about it. So
yeah, maybe
it's on a new platform. I want to keep going with it.
It was so funny because I thought you were going to be the one that was like, "Oh, I don't want to do this." And
me?
Oh, I thought it was
no, Kori, because you were on once before. I think we talked about crystals or something. Your crystal stuff, maybe, but. Yeah, she's a crystal healer. Little do you know, she does that. Nikki does, and Kori does great imitations of people on Saturday Night Live. So that was another thing that you've done. You've done improv, and that's another fun thing. You're very creative, Kori. So that's what you are.
Thanks.
All right, we are. Well, actually, we're all creative. We're all creative.
You guys are too. I don't. You always prop me up as the most creative, but I don't think I deserve that accolade.
You're my favorite.
I know that's not true.
That's the trick is you say that to both. No, you should never say it to either of your kids because you love them equally. So I never have had a favorite. I've had a favorite on some days.
Favorite to do certain things with, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. Kori lives closer to me now. She didn't move so far away.
I don't think I see you at any more frequency, though. Well, maybe I do than Nikki, but I don't.
You do. Yeah. You see me more.
Which, by the way, I think we chose our weekend to visit, so I'll follow up with you on that.
Okay. Yay. All right. Love you guys.
Love you.
Ta-ta.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Living Your Spark Second Half podcast. If you'd like to watch my guest interviews, you can find the video version of this podcast on my Not Your Average Grandma YouTube channel. Also, you can check out what I have going on at the moment by going to my website at notyouraveragegrandma.com or find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you like this episode, please mention it to a friend and don't forget to leave a review so I know the topics you like best and can bring you more of that content in upcoming episodes. Last but not least, remember to always listen to that inner voice that will never steer you wrong and make living from the most sparked place possible your biggest priority. When we do that, we make the world a better place.